Hi, I am Arlethia B. Joyner, historian of the Women's Baptist Home and Foreign Missionary Convention of North Carolina. These interviews are of former presidents and former executive secretary-treasurers of the Women's Baptist Home and Foreign Missionary Convention of North Carolina, auxiliary to the General Baptist State Convention of North Carolina.
I appreciate the question you just asked, because when we implemented the plan and began my tenure, for the 4 years we had CSI, and it meant we were called by the caller to do an effective job across the state. And it was implemented by the Holy Spirit, and we gathered to support the convention across, and we were able to communicate, to take it abroad with love, unity, and fellowshipping one with another, studying God's Word, that we may be effective in witnessing to the unsaved, to the lost, for we were interested, as the slogan goes, Christ in every home. So it was memorable, effective. The people enjoyed it, they were inspired by it, and we were led to do it another time. So we were thankful for the Spirit leading us in that endeavor.
You are aware that the theme that year was from maintenance to ministry. And yes, there is evidence that we have moved some from maintenance to ministry. We are continuing to plan and implement effective programs. We still have that was implemented during my tenure, the scholarship programs, where we give scholarships each year to youth and young adults. We have our Bible camp, though not as long, as many as it used to be. We have our retreats with the ministers and the young adults. We have our evangelism conference, and we continue to have a number of good ministries on site. When I say on site, I mean in North Carolina and some beyond. However, our field is so great that I feel we need to move more effectively into ministry. Sure, we are doing ministry, and I'm very pleased with the things that we are doing. But the field being so wide, there are things that we can do and are capable of doing beyond what we are doing. I recall when the question of ministry was bothering me considerably some years ago, and I wondered indeed if the Lord was pleased with what we were doing, that He showed me a picture that I still have in my mind. The picture was one of a man who had a pump. He had found oil on his land, and he had a pump, a small pump. I see that kind of pump when I go to visit my daughter in California. But the neighbors were asking him, why is it that you only have oil for yourself and you are not sharing with anyone else? And the man said, if all of you, my neighbors, give resources in order that we can buy a larger pump, then I will get more oil, and indeed I can share with all of you. And indeed they generously gave, and he bought a bigger pump. But the neighbors came back after some time in distress and said, but you promised us oil. The gentleman said, the reason, my neighbors, is that when I bought the bigger pump, it took more oil to fuel it. So I have nothing to share with you. That's maintenance. And we have to be careful with our capabilities that we don't have more oil to share beyond our resources. That's maintenance. We're doing some maintenance and we're doing ministry. I envision, Lisa, that we ought to be tapping sources of critical needs. Haiti, for instance, we could build a home for those residents who are still in tents. when we send people on short-term missions, and I hope we will do that, and I'm pleased that the General Baptist has tapped some of our young adults to be, I believe right now, on the mission field, on a short-term mission. It would help if we gave, say, an extra $35 for an extra bag to go with them, to give firsthand to those citizens there who would just so much appreciate. I have been on the foreign field for 20 or more countries, and I have seen firsthand the critical needs there. I know there are critical needs in North Carolina, in the United States and beyond, but we are doing well, and we can still move beyond that.
Well, I think that one of the basic things is that God bless us graciously and gratefully, and that also during that time our people were experiencing a different financial culture or climate. By that I mean more people perhaps had jobs, and then they had jobs that paid them better substantial salaries so that they could better support themselves as well as their churches and Christian missions organizations, as our own organization, Women's Baptist State Convention. Also, you have more people coming. The attendance having grown would of course affect your financial situation, because the more people that should come, the more funds you should bring in, and I think that would be a reason for some of the finance having increased. Perhaps another thing would be education. To educate your people, and when people see that you're accountable for what they give you, and that they have you have given them account of how the money is spent and get it out to the objectives on time, as well as they having received their receipts to show that you have financial integrity, then that is also a part that will help to grow your financial situation.
You know, the convention is so well respected over the state, and I've learned that during my tenure. I was just recently looking over the annual report, and there are over 1,500 churches, auxiliaries, 1,500 circles that support the Women's Convention. And I was looking at the giving, and I thought how blessed we've been over these past few years with the giving and the support from those who serve this convention. There's a huge following. There's a huge love for this convention. And I don't want us to misunderstand giving is down as being a lack of love for the convention, because I'm convinced that the convention is loved all over the state. So the giving, the down in giving is simply a reflection really of the economy. If the economy is down, it's going to impact the churches and impact personal giving, and therefore it impacts the convention. Now, as far as the quota is concerned, I think people appreciate the quota because the quota is sort of a guide. It helps people to know what is it that I can give that would be supportive of the convention, and it helps to give them some ideas about giving. Believe it or not, people expect to get the quota. I've just learned recently that someone did not get their quota, and they were asking, a quota is being given this year? So they expect the quota. I think that it's good as a basis for people to have some idea of what to give, because believe it or not, some of these circles and churches are giving beyond the quota. Some are giving beyond the quota. Some have not given, and it's because of where they are financially. So I think that the quota is probably a good way, a good starting point for persons, for churches, individuals, for groups to consider in their giving.
Well, when we mentioned the change, you know, in the past we've always had the mission classes, and we had with 6 or 7 everybody teaching from the same book. But because of the incidents and because of what's going on in our world today, we felt that we needed to change it. And we went toward the thing you just listed, bullying, trafficking, and teenage pregnancies. And we had an overflow in the classes. And everybody was involved, and they were enthused to realize that this could be done. And we just had a marvelous time. We learned more about it, what trafficking was. We know that it's still crucial. We're living in crucial times. And if we don't touch base with these issues, it's going to get worse. And until we need to get better. And this is why we moved in that. And the Spirit led me to do it. And then we got the support of the convention. We had the support of the team. We had the support of the committees. And it was effective. And we just thank God for the vision. And He moved us in a positive direction that we could see a little difference. We put a dent in it. And we're thankful for that.
Sure, I certainly do. If we plan well, if we are enthusiastic and motivated, and the women are have a clear vision as we do, I think that we could implement any vision that we have for the Central Children's Home in North Carolina. I might share with you that I'm a resident of Granville County, and so I have seen myself firsthand the Central Children's Home there, as well as the Masonic Home for Children at Oxford. And we have done, the Central Children's Home, I might advise, has changed in its purpose and programming in recent years. There was a time when we had children in excess of 250 on site. That is no longer the case, because the purpose now is that children will not be in a permanent residence, but they will be among families, and that is a temporary kind of setting more than as now. We have only a few children at the Central Children's Home right now, and the Central Children's Home is one of our objectives. And by the way, when I talked about moving from maintenance to ministry, I needed to mention that Loch Carey, being one of our objectives of the Women's Convention, is doing some tremendous job in helping across the sea, and in essence we are doing that as well. But the Central Children's Home has been a safeguard for children who are in need of emergency services. Over the years it has been a long-term permanent setting, but currently it is not so much that way. But the women of North Carolina will support enthusiastically anything that is shared with them through a good vision that's worthwhile, and we can do it.
Well, at this time, there is a variety of many things to draw people's attention. But I think one of the significant things for drawing people away from perhaps giving monies to the church as they once did, and that is the satellite ministry. By that I mean the electronic church. So many ministries are now coming to us through the electronic venue and asking for funds and promising blessings with your having sent these funds, so that rather than to share with them and the base local situations and our conventions, the monies flow toward them. However, maybe we need to remember and be reminded that we are told to forsake not our assembling of ourselves together, so that there is still the basic need for the local setting of the local church, and also the local church, along with the organizations as our Women's Convention and others, allow hands-on experience. Also, it allows the kind of fellowship from heart to heart, as they say, and from breast to breast, that people can share and even support and experience that which others bring, their spiritual gifts, however. So that I think maybe that's the satellite ministries that are electronically based have had much effect upon some of the attendance even, as well as the finance, because if your attendance decreases, then more than likely your finance will decrease. And the interest, there are so many things now that are available for people's interest that many follow that interest, and it's not necessarily related to church orientation.
You know, the quota system has been around for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, I was asking Dr. Brody, how long was it in place when she came, or did it start under her tenure? And it's been in place for so long, nobody could remember exactly when it started. So it's been there, it's a cornerstone, and it's been helpful for churches and for auxiliaries and circles in their giving. But you know, in this day and time that we are now on the cutting edge with technology and so forth, I think that it may be time to sort of look at some other avenues that may give some other ways, assist in some other ways in helping people give. And one of the bases that I think that would be important would be to build community, to perhaps visit, to perhaps be in touch with those churches or auxiliaries or circles, to sort of rekindle, if you will. Because if the giving is down, then it means that, and it's been down for a few years now, that it might mean that there may be a need to sort of rekindle the fire. In other words, there may be some ways in which the convention can reach out a little bit more to touch people, to be in touch with the auxiliaries and the circles and the churches. That I think would be helpful. But in terms of whether or not we need to do away with the quota system, I don't think that was something that you want to do, but you might want to build, and you may want to look at some other avenues that may be helpful in terms of fundraising for the convention. The convention, the heart of the convention and the way that we support the objectives is by way of giving, and that giving comes through the auxiliaries, the churches, the individuals, the circles, and all who will support. And that way the convention is able to support the objectives. So when giving is down, then of course the support for the objectives are down, which ultimately impacts then the budget, because the budget will not be able to be met if then the giving is down. But I go back to what I said to your first question, and that is that we not confuse a down in giving with a down in loving, because I think that this convention historically has held strong support, strong following, and if you look at the annual session over the years, you will know that the convention is a loved organization and a supported organization. So I want to say on behalf of the convention how much we appreciate the strong support we've had over the years, the strong following that we continue to have, and know that that God is pleased with what his people are doing.